I wasn't scared because I was burned out. There was no other option. Either have your life back or you're just dying on the vine. I needed my time back.
Welcome to the Masters of Business podcast with Daniel Beer.
Tina Caul, welcome to the Masters of Business podcast. You are running an incredible residential real estate business on pace for over 1,000 homes sold in a single year. And I love having somebody like you on this podcast because we find these universal truths from people in all different industries. And with the scope of business you're doing, you're seeing some things that a lot of entrepreneurs find once they've, and in other industries have to really scale to a lot of employees, huge operations. You've mastered some of these things now. I want to jump right into it. One of the things that we find or like to talk about right out of the gate, and we're going to find out a little bit more about your story, your struggles, how you overcame, and a lot of lessons, including how you identify opportunities, how you deal with risk. But I always love to start off just understanding there is a core competency, at least this is my belief. There's a core competency that everybody like you has who's built a big business. But the reality is you're probably really good at a whole bunch of things, but excellent, almost, I want to dare say, master of a particular area of execution of the business world. And what is that for you? What would you say is that core competency in your world? And by the way, hello, it's awesome having you here.
Well, hi, Dan. Thanks for having me. Now, I'm happy to jump right into it. I like to self-reflect a lot, and I also take a lot of personality assessments. So I would say that if I were assessing my strengths, I think there are two that I identify with. One would be that I'm probably the Debbie Downer in the group because I'm probably going to poke holes in ideas a lot. Like I'll use my discernment and my gut intuition to say that's going to work or that isn't. And if you say to me, but why? I might even come back and go, I don't know, just trust me on it. It's a gut thing. So I use my gut a lot in life and also ideas. So when I think about ideas, it's finding solutions for things. And I think that when you're a business owner, your job is to fix things. And if you can solve problems for people in any industry, you typically will get paid a decent amount of money.
So take us through a landscape of just exactly, what is the whole group, your business? Yeah. What does it look like today? How many real estate agents? How much revenue is being generated? What could you expect in the current calendar year to have accomplished? And then we'll of course talk about what the future might look like.
Yeah, I mean, Call Group is it's an environment where we talk about we're a self-development company that happens to sell real estate. So we're 45, 50 agents. We get together, every day. We try to build their real estate careers for those agents, and we serve the public. And we want to serve the public at the highest level. We want to be one of the best real estate companies around, and I would say that we probably are one of the better real estate companies around. We started Call Group in 2014, and it started not because I wanted to lead a team or even grow a team. It started out of necessity because I was getting to a capacity max where I couldn't sell one more home physically. It was about 130 transactions. And so I fired my first partner and I said, hey, help me with all the buyers and I'll just continue being a listing agent. And from there, I hired another partner. And now here we are, 10 years later, and we've got about 45, 50 partners. We'll sell over 1,000 transactions. The company will gross $12 million. And of course, net is always different, but we figured out how to scale the business without me being the engine of the business, which I think a lot of real estate agents, most of us are solopreneurs. And I think the industry has done people a disservice because they sort of pat you on the back if you stay solo a long time, but they never teach us how to be business owners to scale our businesses. And thank God for being in groups like ours, we've figured out a way to scale and leverage.
It's huge because in what I hear you saying when as I'm listening to that is you're talking about kind of the lid to most any business is oftentimes its leader. But before you even became a business, you used this concept of really the transition from solopreneur to being a business owner. A lot of people refer to themselves as having a business, but they don't. They have a job. Now, it might be a great job, might be a high-paying job.
Sure.
Make no mistake about it, it's a job. And you're speaking, of course, from the perspective of being a realtor turned business owner, but makes me think of, and that's why I do the podcast. It makes me think of, how about anyone in the trades? How about the construction folks, the plumbers, the painters, the electricians, but also the attorneys, the financial advisors. Most everyone who gets into the idea of building a business, but because they were so good at the execution of the job, and that transition is a major just chasm that most people can't get through. What I heard you say, and you said it subtly, but I understand how big of a step it is. You casually just said, well, I hired my first agent who took over the buyers, and I said, hey, I'll stick to the sellers. What I interpret that as is you were willing to take a step back in income.
Yeah.
In order to build something bigger. I'd love for us to unpack that a little bit, because I think it's such a necessary step. Also, in my own experience, I recognize that story in myself. But most won't take the step, or don't know how to, or lack the courage to. What gets in the way? Let's unpack this idea a little bit about being willing to take that step to go, backwards a step or two to leap forward 10.
Yeah, I think, when I looked at my buyer agent business, because I tell my agents this all the time. So we are in a volume-based environment. A team is a volume-based environment. I was a volume-based business as a solo agent, but I got to 130 deals. Now I kept $700,000-$800,000 of my income. If I would have stayed there, I would have continued to make that $700,000 or $800,000, which was about $7,000 a commission check. Now, as a business owner, I've taken that $7,000 down to $2,000 per net per deal. But if I sell 1,000 homes, that's $2 million. Versus if I sell 130 homes at $7,000, you know what I mean? I'm making less per transaction, but I can scale the transactions, just like our agents. The average agent in our market, I've done the research, sells about 2.5 homes per year. Even a decade-long industry, seasoned agent is selling about 50 homes in a decade. So when you think about it, if they come onto my team and they're selling 50 homes a year, but instead of $7,000, $8,000, $9,000 per transaction, they're making $5,000, they're still going to outpace the agent making more per transaction. So they understand when they join us, hey guys, we believe in leverage. We believe in sharing the wealth and picking up parts of the process that are going to cost you money versus make you money. So our agents are indoctrinated to say, okay, we're going to do income producing activities. So we have the highest dollar per hour, deal. And we're going to make more because we can help leverage what Tina has built and sell more transactions. So we've just gone to taking that step back in that per deal rate so we can add more deals and therefore make more money. So hopefully that answers your question. I mean, that's where
there's a lot of the philosophy you followed.
Yeah.
Take this now into it. What were some of the biggest challenges that you faced in doing so, right? In overcoming that? Because if you go back to it, were you scared to give up some of the income? What were the challenges along the way to actually make that a reality?
I wasn't scared because I was burned out. So there was no other option. It's like you either have your life back or you're just dying on the vine, because you can't keep up. So it was a back against the wall moment. It wasn't like, let me sit down and map out my life and be really smart and this great business owner that's so strategic. It was, you're about to never see your family for the rest of your life. Something has to change in your marriage, in your family life, in your dynamic, or it's not worth it, because at some point you go, wow, you're safe. You've got money in the bank, a nice car. You can go pretty much on any vacation you want. So what is it that you're chasing? I needed my time back. I needed that time. So if I'm going to spend all this money or make all this money, where am I going to invest the money that I make to buy back the time? I think I've heard you say that. I mean, we all go through this at some point. How much more money can I make? So I'm going to take the money that I made, the $250,000 that I was making in buyer broker business. I took half of that money and I invested it in Laura Payne. And so now we each are saying, okay, 50% of this business is $250,000 business. You're going to take half of that, but then I'm going to be able to scale because I can sell more listings. I can recruit more agents. I can spend my time investing in people. Because if you think about it this way, Dan, as a solopreneur, I've got 8 to 10 hours per day. How much can Tina make in 8 to 10 hours per day? The entrepreneurial mindset says, well, wait, if I hire 5 people and we're each working 8 to 10 hour days, that's a 50-hour day. I could get a lot more done in a 50-hour day versus an 8-hour day. So yes, I'm going to invest in these people. Yes, I'm going to pull them alongside me. Yes, I'm going to train them and tell them everything possible with the risk of them growing big enough that they could leave me. But that's okay. That's a better risk than staying solo and staying small.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. And this is, it's just great. I'm just thankful to our audience to be able to have you pour into them. By the way, if you don't know, Tina leads in our industry in the real estate space. She leads a mastermind group alongside me and some other just top performers around the country. And I see you in that environment on a consistent basis, but just pulling away from real estate here in this conversation and the universal business truths, I just think it's a lot of fun. So I want to tell you right up front right here, I appreciate you being on. We have a lot more to discuss, by the way, including, let's go here. So we're talking about, okay, so once you get through that and you understand that you have the right mindset and there's a lot of inner work to do there. When it comes to scale, I mean, take us through, so just a quick trajectory is your transaction count is jumping. It is jumping. Yeah. And by the way, in an industry that is having a tougher and tougher time with less transactions year over year over year, but you're jumping. So I think it's fair to say you are achieving scale.
Yeah.
So what are your secrets to scale? Or what are the most effective strategies? They don't have to be secrets, right? Most everything is really execution, and all information is actually just out there in abundance. And so how do you think of scale? How are you achieving it? What comes to mind in terms of the growth you're experiencing in an industry that is struggling?
I think for me, first of all, anytime I start something, I'm not one that's going to say, well, let's just try this and see if it works. Like you started this podcast. If I start a podcast or start an initiative, it's like, what's the 10-year goal? Everything's a 10-year goal, because anybody I've ever met in life, in business, that's truly uber successful, it's from a wealth perspective. Because to me, success could be success in marriage, success in parenthood. There's lots of different levels of success. But when we're talking business, usually successful businesses earn a profit. They've got longevity. So when I think about business, it's what am I going to do this decade? So when I moved to North Carolina, it was like, in 10 years, what will the business look like? I started a team. In 10 years, what will the business look like? I came to EXP. In 10 years, what will my rev share look like? I'm at year 5 with EXP. I'm halfway there. And you've got agents that have already dipped, 3-4 years into it. They're like, I'm bored. Let me go to the next shiny company or next shiny object. And I'm like, man, I'm just getting started. I'm halfway through the process. So I think for me, the number one thing first is mindset. 10 years. This is not going to be a quick thing. So going back to that, I would say that I can embrace the repetitious boredom of doing 1 or 2 things really well. Our team is structured on the foundational aspects of learning scripts, learning their dialogue, going on, listing presentations all the time, working with buyers. It's constantly doing the one thing and having a unified sales curriculum for our agents. So we're not jumping around and bringing in 500 different things all the time. So unified sales curriculum, unified language, and let's teach it the same way every single time so the agents also don't get distracted. They come in with that same mindset and they can do it repeatedly over and over and over again. So I think that's it. It's like, I'm not that smart. I'm just dumb enough to do the same thing and get really good at it instead of trying to add 52 new things to our strategy. We don't do heavy marketing. We've never done flyers and campaigns. We just went all in on one thing. And our one thing was pick up the phone. Let's monitor how many people we're talking to. The more people you talk to, naturally, the more clients you're going to get. And the better you're going to get at that daily habit and that daily activity when you're in a communication business. So So that's it. We just keep it simple and have standards for operating within the environment.
So KPIs.
Yeah.
Are you a KPIs type of leader where, hey, we you know what they are, you drive at them? If so, what are they? If not, why not?
Yes and no. So we have people on our team that manage the numbers, right? So they've got every week our agents have a coaching call with a coach on our team. So they're like, "Hey Dan, what did you do for the week? Let's look at your pipeline." We've got a Trello board, so our agents are looking at what's in their pipeline, how much money are they making like 3 months out because it's a 90-day cycle in real estate. So it's high touch, but we don't ram it down their throat. If you're not going to track your numbers, you're probably not going to be a lead on our team, and then you're probably going to not feel like you should be around us, and you're going to just end up doing it because everybody's doing it. So it's more inspiration by association than, hey, what's your KPI? What's your number? Did you put your leads in there? Because when you start managing by the discipline and the like where you're making people do it, they're not going to do it. They don't want to do it. It's almost like I have to inspire them with the belief that this is how I did it. You may do it different. If you find a better way, please share that with me, Dan. However, you got to trust that what I'm sharing with you, what I'm showing you is going to work at some point. Believe in it. And so I came up with this 6 P's of, it's called From Process to Purpose. And it actually is a diagram, and it shows the agent year by year where they are in their process from getting to where you and I are today, which is we can work on any passion. We could be multi-passionate entrepreneurs because we have our time back. We have money in the bank and we're allowed to do that. But when you're starting something, it starts with a process, and that's year 1. Year 2, you're in practice mode. You have to, keep swinging the golf club and keep practicing those scripts and that dialogue. So that's year 2. Then year 3, you're kind of bored. You're like, is this what I've gotten into the business for? Is this my life right now? You get to boredom phase where you're like, maybe I should switch it up. Maybe I should add in a shiny object. No, that's where most agents fail out of the business by year 3 because they think they should be doing something more exciting and they don't embrace the boredom. By year 4, you're in empowerment mode where you're like, man, I'm pretty damn good at this. And I'm getting excited because I can facilitate a buyer or listing contract. And then by year 5, 6, 7, passion starts to grow because you can do the thing. And then by year 10, when you've got money in the bank, you've got investments, you've got a fully faceted business that's functional and profitable, that's where you can pursue the passion or the purpose. What is my purpose in life? Oh, to give back because I've put my mask on. I've gotten there. Now I can give back to others. So there's this diagram that I show my agents. So when they come in year 1, 2, they can look at it and go, oh, that's where I am. I shouldn't be looking at Sarah over here because she's in year 5 or 6. So she's doing something different. And I show them that it's going to take time. So they understand that they shouldn't feel like they're behind, because everybody wants it now. We're in a TikTok society. I want it now. Let me grade it.
I know. I was going to say, you talking about 10 years and all this, you're going to make half the audience go away because they want it yesterday.
Too bad.
And but what's really nice for me in hearing about it is I'm recognizing again my own story, and it did take 7 to 10 years. 7 years for I don't want to use the word mastery because there's so much I've learned since then.
Sure.
But to certainly be to be strong and really confident and ahead of most. And then what happened over those next short 3 years, and then let alone the next 3 years and the next, but it took time. And so sometimes I start thinking like, whoa, was I slow? Because you talk to new people that enter in any business and they want all the results now. They want all the results by, it's amazing. You'll interview somebody who's really doesn't have anything going yet. That's the key word. And so that all that potential is there. And their ideal first year is like what you accomplish in 8. And it's like, holy shit. All right. Well, okay. So guys, I hope you're really hearing that. Okay. It is why business success is available to everybody and attained by few is how many of us actually go into it with that 10-year plan versus wanting all the results immediately. So in that though, Tina, in order to get that, I think no matter what industry you're in, you have to eventually make decisions about opportunities that you're going to pursue, the path you're going to take. Even if you're a painter, for example, you have a painting business. Well, are you going to go after HOAs? Are you going to go after, multifamily? Are you going to do home by home by home? What are you going to do? And you could do it all. So to hone in on the question here, how do you know? And especially, I know your business, it's my business. So in the real estate space, there are so many ways you can go. A lot of right ways to make money. How do you know if you're looking at an opportunity versus what some might call a distraction, a squirrel, a shiny object? Because what I've observed is that what's an opportunity for one person might just be a shiny object for the other, or vice versa.
Yeah.
So how do you discern that? How do you know what you're looking at, if it's worth your energy, or if it's just a great opportunity, but for somebody else?
I think I come from a father who was a serial entrepreneur. So he failed at a lot of businesses. And so what I grew up in is a man that took risks, and he opened restaurants and they failed, and he opened laundromats. And I mean, you name it, my dad owned it. And so coming from that mentality, I think that shaped me to say, take a chance, take a risk. However, there were a lot of businesses that my father did, start where I said, well, what problem does that solve? And so I'm always looking at something and going, does that solve a problem? Is the problem big enough to make it blow up, to make it worthwhile? Like, for instance, when we saw EXP, I was with Keller Williams. Keller Williams solved my problem of team building. I read the Red Book, and, it's got 12 chapters or whatever. The chapter that was missing in that book was the escape plan, the leverage plan, the plan that you could, create passive residual income. And so when I was exposed, and you were one of the people that, convinced me to come to EXP, when I heard the pain point that was solved, then I said, could I do that? Well, Dan's doing it. He's got ethos, which means you have clout. You had grown in the business. You had a decade plus of industry experience. And so people would look at you and go, I believe Dan because he's done it. He's got success. And so you've got what they call ethos. And so because you had that, I was like, well, I have that too. I've done this thing in the industry. I could monetize my brain. And so for me, it's like a puzzle piece. There are agents and people that have strategy in their brain. One of their strengths is strategy. They can see the puzzle pieces fit together. Yeah. And so I think whenever I look at an opportunity, I look at where is that opportunity in my life going to take? Is it going to give me my time back or take my time away? And you cannot start so many businesses or you're never going to be great at any. So I think that's it. Can I add this opportunity into my business? Will it take away from my other businesses the time that I'm investing? And is it going to be a shiny object, or is it going to solve such a problem where I have to go all in on this and either hire people to help me execute it or invest my own personal time to get it off the ground for 3 or 4 years and then hire people to take it over? So I guess I would say stay open to opportunity, decide if it's the right risk, but definitely don't be closed-minded because a lot of people don't like change. And if you're one, I don't want to change anything, think things are going right for me, you might miss out on the next big thing, but just don't take on every opportunity, if that makes sense.
But it's also that fear of missing out that just kills so many people and takes them off their momentum.
Yeah. But do they have, like for me, I've got EXP, I've got my team, I've got rentals, I've got, affiliate agreements. I'm building a course right now. I had to let go of something. My podcast was one thing I let go of. I started it and said, man, this is going to take too much of my time. I don't have the capacity to really do this well. So if I do it half-ass, it's not going to work out anyway. My passion meter is not there. Do I wake up every day jumping out of bed to go do this thing? Or because I'm a high performer, is it something that I just want to check off my box to see if I can make it successful because I'm obsessed with success? Because I think a lot of top performers are obsessed with success. They're like, could I do that and do it better? Could I do that and make it successful? Like they just want to know. It's like scratching the itch. But for me, if my gut doesn't say, Tina, you're so passionate about this, I follow my passion meter. And if the passion's not there, it's a no. It's a no. It's a flat out no.
And I know that feeling.
Yeah.
And I know the feeling of ignoring it.
Yeah.
And you, frankly, have just done a better job of truly listening to that.
Yeah.
And I think women and as a whole do a better job of listening to that gut. Like there's just, that's, I don't know, you don't hear me generalize like that too often, but I do find that there's a pattern there where you have a better gut, more accurate gut, and you do a better job of listening to it.
Yeah.
So, okay. So then what does, just kind of finishing up this, part of our conversation here, then what does, we've talked about the big picture, the 10-year picture. So what is that for you? What's the 10-year, or I'm just going to call it the long-term, goal, vision for your business, and how do you plan to get there?
I think for me now, like the true part of my business that I love is to develop other leaders, because you're not a great leader unless you've developed other people to becoming better leaders. Like my business should run without me. Then it's a great, thriving business. If I'm the one in the weeds and I think I'm the best one to do everything, I have not hired the right people. So strategically for me, I use a couple, different systems of hiring. I think I have the best leadership team right now that I've had in a long time. So the real estate business is going to function like it is, and we're going to grow that. It's not about agent count. It's more about each of our agents making $100,000 or more. The next thing is, Dan, I'm safe. Right now, financially, I'm safe. I have more money than I could have ever envisioned 15 years ago. And so when I think about that, because I have achieved that financial goal, the problem that I see with a lot of us is we go, yeah, but it still doesn't feel like enough. It's a game of making money. That can be a game for people. What I don't want to fall into is the game of constantly exchanging my time for money and then never living. Because if I got hit by a bus, if I knew I was dying in a year, let's just say that I knew I was dying in a year, I think a lot of us would switch off a lot of these extracurricular things that we do, and we'd spend more time doing the things that we want to do. So right now, Kevin and I have mapped out literally our time and where it's going to go. So we've got a house that's being built in Costa Rica. We've got our lake house. We've got our house here in Raleigh. And so we've taken 2 weeks out of every quarter that we're going to spend at these different houses. I know that I'm going to, spend more time doing things that I love to do, which is like gardening. I know it sounds stupid, but I love to garden. And I have not gardened in a long time because I have enough money to hire a gardener. But I'm like, man, I should be doing these things. So I think it's getting back to what would I be doing if money was not an issue? Like, think about your life right now. You have endless amounts of money. You could never even recreate a business that would make more money than the money you have. So it takes out the game of making money. So if that was gone and you were safe, what would Dan do with his life every day? Like, that's the question I always ask myself. What would I do if I didn't have to play the game of money? And I would do a lot of different things than I'm doing today. And so because I have the opportunity to do them, hey, dumbass, why don't you go do them? Like, is what I tell myself. Because again, there are people right now that are dying in hospitals, that are getting hit by vehicles, not to be, awful about it, but life changes on a dime. So I want to make sure I live before I die. That is my purpose right now, to make sure that I live.
Yeah. And I love that, by the way, Tina. Really good. And I made a personal note for myself to sit with one of those thoughts, some decision making that I'm going through. So really good. You mentioned, as we come kind of to the end here, and by the way, if Tina's speaking your language, if you like what she's saying, you're connecting, go find her on Instagram. She runs an awesome Instagram channel. She has great YouTube going on. Tina Caul, Caul, by the way. And go find her, easy to find. I think you'll really enjoy it. So building other leaders.
Yeah.
That involves also understanding a lot about who they are, how they're wired.
Yeah.
And I'll give you the floor to go as long as you want, as short as you want, because we're on your time here.
Yeah.
I know that understanding people and their work, their personal strengths and where to plug them into an organization, where to have them contribute or not contribute, highest and best use. Well, that's become a huge passion for you.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to speak to that as it relates to how you do go about identifying, opportunities for these leaders, how to develop them, and how you incorporate this, I don't know, I'll generalize it as personality profiles, even though I think it's a lot deeper than that. And I'll let you take it as deep as you like.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, when I was exposed to the first DISC assessment 15 years ago by Mike Ferry, he was like, DISC, you're a driver, you're an analytical, you're an amiable, or you're an expressive. And that was about the gist of behavioral, behavioral interpretation of work and how people function. And when I started to really look at the DISC, it was like, well, my behavior during the time when I was building my business, I was a high D. I had to be a driver because I was the warrior for my family. I had to call expireds and become a different person. Naturally, I'm not that high of a D. I'm more of an I. I'm more social. I love to be around people. I'm very curious. And so when I started to really self-reflect, why do I act the way that I do? Why am I impatient at times? Why do I wake up every day with this insatiable thirst to like build things and have ideas? Why am I like that? And why is Kevin not like that? Or why is Kevin more like in his head and he could like wander and ponder life and he's more spiritual and like slow in life? Like he slows me down. And so I would admire things about him and then he would admire things about me. So anyway, I started to get into different personality assessments. The two that I found that are infectiously like relevant are the Gallup Strengths Finder, which there's 33 strengths that humans have. And what it does is it ranks your top 5. And the cool thing about this is you can't lie on this test, because I think with the DISC, like you can sort of lie on it and make yourself a high I or high D or whatever. This test you take once every 10 years. And it gives you your top 5 or 10 strengths. And what happens with most people, especially the overachievers, is they look at their weaknesses and they go, I'm going to work on those. I'm going to develop those. Why? If you're a 6 at something and you're only going to become a 7 or 8, who cares? But if you're an 8 at something, try to become a 10. Like I know I'll never be in the WNBA because I'm 5'2". I don't care if I become like the best basketball player in the world, there's going to be a hindrance there because I can't reach the net. And so I think that when you focus on your strengths and lean into them, you're going to get better at them. So that's the first test that I would take. And again, it's not going to put everyone in a box. I've had people say, oh, well, those aren't accurate. I don't want to live in a box. I don't want to use those tests to weaponize someone. That's bullshit. They're very accurate. And when you look at people and you start to study and see those patterns in their life, these tests have been around for decades and they're by doctors that look at this shit all day long. The next one would be the working genius. So they always say work is a 6-letter word. You need 6 different types of geniuses to execute projects. And what happens, Dan, is if you and I were going to execute a project, let's say we were going to throw a gala, you and I, knowing you and myself, we're at the top of the widget. You like to wonder, you like to ponder, you like to ask a lot of questions. That's probably why you enjoy doing the podcast. You are inventive and you are discerning. You like to poke holes in things and you like to see where things are going to go wrong. So you and I live over here at the top. What you and I are terrible at is execution. We need people around us that have tenacity, that actually like to help others, like do things for others versus like for our own benefit. And that sounds like we're selfish. We're not. We're just saying that if I were in a school gym and I was watching my son play a basketball game and we were leaving the gym after the game and people were stacking chairs, I'm not called to go stack those chairs. I don't feel guilty walking by and thinking, I got to go, like I got other things to do. There are people in this world that are E's that have to stop and help because they would feel guilty not stacking chairs. I know that about myself, and I know where I can find the E's and the T's and the G's to execute problems now in my business. So knowing those, I know where I can bring a human joy because I'm saying, hey, Dan, can you help me do this? To ask an E or a T, can you help me? They're like, yes, what do you need me to do? I just brought that person joy. So I can look at my team and say, okay, what do they love to do? What is their genius? And let me make sure that if I'm going to put this person in this seat, that 80% of their day is in their genius. So they wake up happy and they wake up, so elated to come to work versus someone who's learned the technical aspect of the job. Let's say an assistant. They've learned how to manage your inbox and schedule appointments, but they hate the job. They can do the job, but they hate the job. So they're grumpy Sally all day. But instead, if I get, Susie over here who loves to do that and she loves to execute and check things off boxes, my assistant now literally high fives me at the end of the day. And she's like, what a great day. Look at the things we got done. And I'm like, yes, Jenny, it's amazing. She loves it, right? And I'm like, who cares? But she loves it, right? So, I mean, it's just fun to see her joy. And now I get to give her that joy versus steal her joy.
So let me tell you something. We see your joy and hear your joy just in talking about this subject. So yeah, I love that. And, I'm going to point out that you're displaying something that has been displayed on virtually every episode of this podcast and that I predict will continue to be into the future. And it is self-awareness. Understanding who you are, what you're not, who you're not, and being on. And some of those are wonderful. Some of those are unfortunate truths that you're just going to have to acknowledge and then surround yourself with stronger people.
Yep.
And it is a commonality that I'm finding across virtually every interview I do, that there is a huge separator in where people get to, how close to their goals, rooted in self-awareness. And there's more, right? There's more ingredients. But if I were asked, right, if this was a salad or a cake or whatever, and I was asked what's the base ingredient, I might very well be choosing that one. If I'm listening to the commonalities that I pick up across all these different episodes, and you've displayed that beautifully. Guys, this is a dear friend of mine out of North Carolina, Raleigh, North Carolina, Tina Caul. Like I said, go find her on Instagram, go find her on YouTube. She has an amazing channel, always dropping nuggets, always having wisdom for you, and just fun. I mean, just a fun personality that is wicked smart. And Tina, thank you. Every time I get to have a conversation like this with you, I swear I grow, I become inspired, and my admiration for you and just respect for what you've accomplished just continues to expand. So thank you so much for being with us here.
Thank you, Dan. You're the best.